Hello everyone, my name is Kieran. My teammates are Courtney, Neha, and Sai. Our topic is cassava leaf diseases, data augmentation using GANs, and disease image classification using deep learning models. Next slide. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to go over problem data collection, and we're going to skip over EDA because we already discussed that in our previous presentation. Then we're going to go into our methodology and results. So there's two parts of our project. The first is that we wanted to conduct a comparative study of the different GAN models for generating leaf images for the purposes of data augmentation. And the second part of our project was then to implement classification models to classify diseased images. Overall, we implemented 6 different deep learning models. So next slide, please. Cassava is a starchy root that is extensively cultivated crop in Africa. But while over 80% of small household farms in sub-Saharan Africa grow this root, very few have the ability to detect and mitigate the devastating effects of disease outbreaks with which they're regularly plagued. So to combat this problem, our team proposed a twofold solution. As mentioned before, we first explored GANs for data augmentation, which, as we learned, introduce versatility into a training data and improves generalization. We then develop image classification models. Next slide, please. So as discussed in our previous presentation, the data was collected from Kaggle. And next slide talks about the five different classes. 4 of them were diseased and one of them was healthy. Next slide. So this is just a quick refresher reminder about GANs. We learned this in class, but it's an adversarial process in which we simultaneously train 2 models. One of them is a generator, which generates the fake images. And then we have a discriminator, which outputs the probability of whether or not an image is real or fake. Next. So this is our first model. This is lightweight GAN. It was introduced in 2021. And the main purpose of this is that it's an improvement to style GAN. And the whole idea is to improve or to reduce the computational cost of GANs. So in comparison, traditional GAN models like style GAN, lightweight GAN has a lower budget because of the architecture. Well, I'll talk in next slide. It is less likely to model collapse, yet it still produces high quality images. So the next slide quickly talks about the architecture. So the main contributions of their work is to introduce these 2 design techniques or modules. The first one is skip layer channel-wise excitation module, and this is designed to allow the gradient to flow robustly throughout the model, speeding the training process. The second is a self-supervised discriminator trained as a feature encoder, and the purpose of this is to extract meaningful image features that the decoder can give good reconstructions. So the next slide, because of time, we talk about the code detail in our report, but we played with different data augmentation types, such as horizontal flips, translation, cutout, and color. We found that translation and cutout, the combination performed the highest and gave us the best quality pictures. And these are the different hyperparameters of our highest performing model. In the next slide, these are the sample images that it generated for cassava mosaic diseased leaves. And in the next slide, we have a video. Basically, it demonstrates the progress, what it looked like for this model. So we saved all the different checkpoints and then generate this progress, a sequence of images. And from here, we're going to talk about CycleGAN.
The next GAN model which we have tried is CycleGAN. This is a high-level architecture of the CycleGAN where we will have 2 generators as well as 2 discriminators. In our project, we have inputted the healthy leaf images as an input and try to generate the disease images, and again try to generate the health images back, because that is how CycleGAN works. Next slide. Hyperparameters that we have used to train our CycleGAN. We have explained these part in detail in our final report. The GIF image shows the generator progress at each epoch by converting healthy leaf to cassava mosaic disease. The final results were not accurate because the CycleGAN tries to generate leaf part as well as the surrounding environment. So the overall accuracy is not good. So to tackle this problem, we have tried leaf GAN, which will only concentrate the leaf part and will ignore the surrounding part. And the below images shows some of the generated images for cassava disease, CBP disease using cycle GAN. And to check our cycle GAN model, we have generated 5 image samples for each disease and try to classify the images using efficient P0, which we later discussed by Neha. From the results, we have noticed that cycle GAN produce better results for the for the cassava mosaic disease when compared to other diseases.
Cool. Thanks, Sai. So the third and novel GAN that we used is leaf GAN. Briefly, the parameters that we use for training, and we focus on building a model for just the cassava mosaic disease. So what's different about this GAN? Well, it's mainly including a step of segmentation. So we use the label-free leaf segmentation model, and that's the purpose is to identify which part of the image is actually the leaf and which one is the background. This is important so that the GAN can recognize the region of interest to augment. So of course, we were not able to use pre-trained weights because as you can tell, the leaf is not conventionally shaped. It's got big old lobes. So we tune the threshold also to get the shape that we want. And with our data training, we ended up with a model that can output pretty decent heat maps. So what you're looking at here is the warmer the region, the higher the probability that the pixel is contributing to the leaf region. And from that, we can get a segmented image mask that only has the leaf that we want. As you can tell, it does have some of the background, but it does identify most of the leaf pretty well. And with that, we deploy the leaf GAN model on our masked image. So what are we looking at? So on this left here is epoch 10. So this left is the real image, and then the right is the fake. So as you can see that it does augment the image in a way that it pronunciates the disease portions and has more characteristics of a diseased leaf. With further training, so on the right here is epoch 50, it further emphasizes the mosaic pattern and also the veins. So we terminated this model at epoch 50, but we would like to continue training because it's well, if I do say so myself. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Neha.
Thank you, Courtney. So we thought our solution would be incomplete if we do not provide an efficient and effective classification model to check if cassava plant is suffering from a disease or not. So we have trained some deep learning models as an extension to our project. And here we are showing the improved models only. Next, please. We have used both GPU and TPU to train our models. We ran for a few epochs only because of the training time and all. So we are not going to too much details of the model due to time constraint. So here we trained a baseline model and hyperparameters used are shown here on the slide. This baseline model achieved validation accuracy close to 62.37%. So now our aim is to get a model which get a better performance than this. Next, please. So for pre-processing, we have used some helper functions to load the images, decode images, read the TF records, data augmentation, and we use pre-trained models for transfer learning. So why transfer learning? Because it requires less time to train the model since it is already trained on a different task. And also it can be used for tasks having smaller data set as the model is already trained on a large data set and the weights are transferred to the new task. So that is all relevant to our project. So that is the reason we chose these models. Next, please. So the first model I'm talking about is ResNet 50. It is one of the ResNet variant, and it is 50 layers deep and is trained on 1,000 classes from ImageNet database. And it's known for excellent generalization performance. And to avoid overfitting, we use some batch normalization, early stopping, and L2 regularization. Next, please. And for feature extraction, we used the model loaded with the weights on ImageNet. And you can see we save the weights of this baseline model. And for fine tuning, then we have used transfer learning. And the validation accuracy which we achieved for this model was about 81%. Next, please. So another model which we tried is EfficientNet B0. And the same approach we have applied here, which we applied to ResNet. So one important point here is to notice we did not freeze the layers since Cassava classes do not match the ImageNet classes. So our data set is very different from those classes, and freezing will decrease the accuracy. So here are some hyperparameters which we got for our improved model. And for overfitting, to avoid it, we use data augmentation, early stopping, and reduce LR on plateau. I would just like to specify reduce LR on plateau. It helps to reduce the learning rate based if the metric is not improving. So it was quite efficient in training the model. Next, please. And this is the validation accuracy you can see for the model. It was close to 88.46%. So that's the model which we use for CycleGAN for predicting, which Sai had shown. Next, please. Then we validated our data set, which Professor told it's really important. So we just tested some validation images. There are about 16, and one on the left you see is the one which model didn't predict correctly. Next, please. And then we ran the model for about 5,000 images and got the classification report, which shows the precision, recall, F1, and the support score for all the classes. Next, please. And finally, the confusion metrics to give a holistic view of how well our classification model performed and what kind of errors it made. Thank you. I'll pass it to Courtney now.
Cool. So in terms of future improvements that we can make, the classification model EfficientNet that we used was quite small. We chose that just based on resources, but a heavier model could improve our results. Next, images that we used. In kind of our testing, we found some really poor quality images and also images that look misclassified. So it would be interesting to do this again with various image sizes, increase resolution, and also curate actually the images that we use. Oh, sorry. In terms of deep learning model tuning, we were not like super adventurous with changing batch sizes, image sizes. So that could also improve results, likewise with the learning rate. And finally, the whole purpose of GAN, continuing to data augment, generate our expanded training set with LeafGAN, and really want to emphasize the benefits of having like a transformed image rather than going out to the field and taking additional pictures that might introduce background noise or confusion, and also not having to deal with labeling costs. And that's our project.